Hello, Telvani here, and today I thought I would share with you my first map science experiment and Atlas strategy of 3.18 Sentinel League. In this video, we will be bringing back an old favorite of mine, Legion farming on Cemetery, and seeing how it stacks up in the current meta. I had actually tried out some Legion farming with Stream of Consciousness at the very beginning of the league. However, with Arc Nemesis modifiers in full swing during the first few days of Sentinel, and the relatively lower player power in a league start scenario, it felt pretty bad. But with Arc Nemesis modifiers not as strong as they used to be, and the upcoming buff to Headhunter just around the corner, I thought now would be the perfect time to revisit this league mechanic. Hello, Telvani from the future here, and I saw that Grimro recently released a video on a similar strategy. Great minds really do think alike. I had been working for the past few days independently on this video, and I am happy to share my findings to add to the discussion. Alright, let's go ahead and start breaking down this Atlas strategy. As we've already said, we're going to be running Cemetery for our map. Cemetery is pretty nice, as it has the ability to drop the Brothers' Stash, a single Divination card that can be exchanged for 5 Exalted Orbs. This map is also quite linear, and it has a pretty open layout. This makes it quite nice for both Legion and for the strategy we are going to be implementing, as we will be rushing to the boss first, and clearing backwards through the map to make most of our Sentinels and our Eldritch Altars. Grimro made an excellent video about reverse clearing maps, and if you want to know more about that specific portion of this strategy, I'd recommend checking it out. Alright, so we have our 48 maps here, and I've gone ahead and chiseled and elked them. I've also re-rolled some of the nastier mods like Reflect and Negative Player Resistances. My current build could probably power through pretty much any map, and if yours can too, I'd recommend just volleying them all instead of re-rolling them, for a chance at increased quantity. However, I'd still like to level up a few more times this league, so I've opted to run safer rolled maps. We're also running 48 maps instead of 50 this time around, as honestly, it just lines up better with our Sextants, and it fits perfectly in a single stash tab, since most of my quad tabs are being eaten up by Sentinel this league. But not to worry, Chris said we'd have more than enough space in the locker. Wait. Moving on, it was tempting to try and grab Stream of Consciousness, as it is a lot of free value to our maps. However, with Legion, a lot of the value comes from Gilded Scarabs, which guarantee all of your Legion encounters will have 2 generals. So I have opted to drop Stream of Consciousness for this test and run Scarabs instead. I do believe there may be some potential in farming this strategy with Stream of Consciousness, especially on a budget, so I may test that out in the future. For our Scarabs, we are running Gilded Legion, as it does guarantee generals, which will give us far more splinters and emblems. Next, we are actually going to be trying out polished Cartography Scarabs. At the time of the recording, these things were pretty cheap, costing us only 3C each. With map sustain being as bad as it is right now for a lot of players, these things should add at least a few chaos value to our maps, without adding any additional time spent clearing out mechanics, as we'll be able to sell most of our extra maps to other players for some major profits. For our third Scarab, we are running Rusted Elder Scarabs. I was considering running Strongbox or Harbinger Scarabs instead. However, Elder Scarabs are a fraction of the cost and should add a significant number of monsters to our maps. Finally, we'll be running Rusted Divination Scarabs. Divination Scarabs are incredibly powerful on maps with good cards, and especially when you are magic finding. I've opted for Rusted as at the time of this video they were only 1 chaos each, while Polished were almost 10 times that amount. Moving on to our Sextants, we are running the Legion Sextant. This is incredibly good value, as at the time of this video they were 1C per added Legion to our maps. Honestly, even with a Stream of Consciousness strategy, Sextants are incredibly powerful, as they allow you to guarantee the mechanic you are targeting, while still retaining an incredibly high chance of getting a second spawning naturally. At the beginning of the league, I would very often get 2 Legions with Stream of Consciousness while using these Sextants. For our second Sextant, we will be running Strongbox Sextants. These are also incredibly cheap at about 1 chaos per charge, adding 2 extra Strongboxes and allowing us to drop 2 skill points from our Atlas tree. For our third Sextant, we'll be running Essence. These are a bit controversial, as they will cause more of your essences to be corrupted, giving you remnants, but they are pretty cheap, so I thought I would include them. However, you might find better results by dropping these. For our final Sextant, I am running Elevated Shrine. At the time of this video, they were less than 1 chaos per charge. However, if this video gets some traction, I could see that price going up quite significantly. This Sextant is pretty powerful for anyone using the Gull or taking shrine nodes on the tree, as it adds 2 total additional shrines to your maps, adding a lot of utility and a lot of mobs. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Atlas passive tree. We are running a pretty standard setup here with essences and strongboxes. Coming up the middle of the tree to grab shrines and rogue markers. If you don't really want to sell heist stuff on TFT, you could always drop this and grab more quantity in the middle of the tree, or this node giving you 10% more invitations. I actually wanted to take this node, but I ran out of skill points. Finally, you could also run these nodes down here to get potentially even more legions per map. Moving on, we're grabbing additional Harbinger nodes over here, and both of the map wheels here and here to increase our map drops. We are also blocking pretty much every mechanic apart from Legion, Rogue Markers, and Delirium. And honestly, Delirium is only here because we are very tight on Atlas points. But I would probably block it if you decide to drop Heist. Coming up on the left side here, we are grabbing more essences both here and here. You could also connect your tree on this side instead, as it is the same amount of points spent. Going over to the middle of the tree, we're picking up more Heist, Essence, Harbinger, and Shrine. Going down here a little bit, we're picking up Operative Strongboxes for a little bit of a boost to our Scarab output. And we're grabbing several of the map nodes to increase map output even further. I have opted to grab Singular Focus, but I'm not sure this is necessarily the play. It's hard to tell if the amount of culled maps, including Shaper Guardian and synthesized maps, would be more valuable. But right now, selling something like Bulk City Square or Crimson Temple can make you an absolute killing. Coming over here, we've got a few more Harbinger nodes. And pathing further on, we've got our Eater of World nodes and Legion nodes. We aren't running this Legion node, as our Gilded Scarabs already give us a better version of this effect. But if you're trying a Stream of Consciousness setup, you'll want to make sure you're grabbing this. Finally, we are taking Wrath of the Cosmos to significantly buff our Eldritch currency generation. But keep in mind, it can make the maps pretty rippy. Moving on to our expenses, we bought our cemetery maps at 5 chaos each for a total of 240 C. This was actually a fourth of our total expenses. We spent another 15 chaos on chisels, 7 chaos on elks, and 25 chaos worth of elks and scours, rolling off some of the nasty modifiers on our maps. Our Gilded Legion Scarabs were also 5 chaos each, totaling 240 C, with Cartography Scarabs costing 3 chaos each. Rusted Elder Scarabs, a little under 2 chaos each, and finally Divination Scarabs were incredibly cheap at only 1 chaos per Scarab. We paid 1 chaos or less per charge for every single one of our sextants, as it's truly a buyer's market right now for compasses. And finally, we will be spending 144 chaos to use Kirik Essence on every single map we run. This brings our total expenses to 1,119 chaos, or about 6.4 Exalted Orbs at the current exchange rate. I'm excited to see how much profit we'll make, as I'm honestly not sure what kind of returns we're going to be looking at here. But, as I am recording this portion of the video before actually running the maps, we'll have to wait and see. So I'm going to go ahead and start running these maps, and I'll see you on the flip side. Alright, so I've run a few maps, and I thought I should mention a few more things. First things first, I am running a little bit of Magic Find gear. I was able to squeeze in a couple of rings and a gold worm for a total of 45% quant. And honestly, I'd recommend trying to do something like this on any build you are mapping with. The more quant you can get on your build, the better, as long as you are not sacrificing too much damage or clear speed. I was debating not running any Magic Find for this test, as I can already hear several of you typing in the comment section that this invalidates the test results. However, not doing so is literally leaving free money on the table. Speaking of which, that brings us to the second thing I'd like to mention. Sentinel. I am using the Sentinel mechanic, which I alluded to earlier in the video, as Sentinel is just too strong not to use. It's honestly on the same level of power as Delirium League was, when you got a free Delirium mirror in every single map. And if you're not using it, again, you're just leaving money on the table. Unfortunately, Sentinel is a little difficult to quantify, but for this test, I'm only using Sentinels with good reward types, like Currency, Scarabs, etc. And Sentinels with a minimum of 80 enemies empowered. As long as you are picking up Sentinels to identify and breed with, you should be able to sustain this. However, as a result, I will be excluding any non-unique Sentinels from our profits at the end of this video, as well as any power cores we pick up, as it is assumed you will be using these to sustain your Sentinel collection. Finally, as we are running both a Legion and altar farming strategy. If you care about dying, you might want to consider popping your Legions early in the map, essentially right after you rush to and kill the boss. Since if you get the Maraketh Spearmen and Archers in a map that already has 6 altars, while affected by Wrath of the Cosmos, you're going to be in for a very bad time. However, if you don't mind dying a little bit, and you have a strong build, waiting until the end of the map will theoretically yield you the best results, as drops from Legion monsters should be affected by altar modifiers, such as quantity, rarity, and duplicate rewards. Alright, I've just finished running all 48 of these maps, and we actually had some very, very interesting results. I was blown away by how well and how poorly some of the strategy performed. And I'd really recommend watching all the way until the end, as I'll have some pretty helpful tips and suggestions on how to improve this strategy even further. So let's go ahead and take a look at an overview of our results. Afterwards, we'll examine our methodology and dive into some of the meatier questions, like which mechanics were profitable and which were not. But before we do, if you're liking my content and would like to see more of these map science videos, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, as these types of videos generally take several days to create, between running the maps and editing it all together in a polished package for you guys. Alright, our total expenses were around 6.4 Exalted Orbs. However, our total revenue received was an insane 52.2x, an 8 times return on our initial investment. Next, let's take a look at exactly what all dropped during this test, what we're including in these calculations, and what we've excluded. Here we have our Legion tab. As you can see, we had 7 full sets drop. These are selling close to 1x per set in bulk, while the remaining emblems make up another few x profit. We also have our incubators down here. However, I've not included these in the profits from our test, as unhatched incubators are pretty difficult to sell. I did, however, equip incubators throughout the test, and anything that dropped was added to our general loot tab, as if you're running a Legion strategy, you should always be using good incubators. Next we have our Essence tab. I've gone ahead and upgraded all of our essences to Deafening and Shrieking, as anything below that is quite difficult to sell. We did get a few corrupted essences. However, I was not good about corrupting potential essences throughout the test, as I was more focused on speeding through and getting as many map completions as possible. You could probably expect to see even further profits than shown here if you are micromanaging which essences you are corrupting. And as you can see, with the corrupted Essence Sextant, you should have more than enough remnants to do so. Moving on, we have our Scarabs tab. This was actually kind of disappointing, and it is very easy to see how much of a nerf Eldritch Altars received when we look at this. Here we have our general loot tab. This includes all of our maps, contracts, and currencies that we picked up. I've gone ahead and upgraded most of our lower currencies up via the vendor. We actually had 159 of our favorited uncorrupted maps in this 48 map test, over-sustaining by over 200%, which sounds pretty amazing, but we'll go over that a bit more in detail in a minute here. Up here are our boss-related maps. About half of them dropped from Sentinel, and we were also only about 4 maps short of receiving a second Screaming Invitation worth an Exalted Orb. We had 72 Chaos worth of Gemcutter Prisms drop through these Union cards, about a third of which can be attributed to our Divination Scarabs. We also had 1 Cacophony drop, which the PoE Wiki says drops in Cemetery, although I feel like that might be fake news as we only got 1 card. Finally, we had 1 Brother's Stash drop during this test, which was a pretty nice boost to profits. You can see here we had 3 raw Exalted Orbs drop during this test. Normally I'd say this is a little atypical. However, the Sentinel League mechanic and Legion both drop a ton of raw Exalted Orbs, so I don't think this is too strange in the current league. Moving on, you can see our excluded loot. I didn't want this test to be too bloated, so I've excluded quite a bit of stuff that I personally would pick up, but wouldn't necessarily expect you to sell. This includes low-tier maps, corrupted maps, bad contracts, low-tier essences, and random fragments that dropped. You can also see that we had 36 red and blue sentinels with good reward types that dropped, and we only used 10 to 20 running this test. So you should be able to over-sustain your sentinel pool quite easily, and some of these could probably be sold off, leading to potentially even higher profits. So with all of that out of the way, let's take a look at just how profitable this strategy was by mechanic. The first thing we were trying to test out was Legion. As you can see, we spent 288 chaos on Sextants and Scarabs, but we had almost 1700 chaos worth of drops, profiting close to 1400 chaos, or around 30 chaos per map. We made an absolute killing on Legion, and I would say this is very much worth running if your build can handle it. However, do keep in mind that the price of Legion Scarabs and Sextants are likely to rise, which could potentially result in much lower profits per map. Although I don't see a world in which Legion is unprofitable to run, as even if it was 50% less profitable, it would still have been 15 chaos per map. Next, we have Cartography Scarabs. This one was absolutely mind-blowing. We had 159 maps drop during this test, and using our Scarab caused 35% more maps to drop. So we can expect that about 26% of our total maps dropped were due to this Scarab, totaling up to be roughly 42 maps added. With Cartography Scarabs costing 3 chaos for a total of 144 chaos, we only profited 62 chaos from running Cartography Scarabs, or a very underwhelming 1.3 chaos per map. Perhaps you would see different results if you removed the singular focus keystone. However, if you do that, you're going to end up with a lot of 1 to 3 copies of garbage maps that no one wants to buy, like cells. So I don't really see this being much better, and I can't really recommend running Cartography Scarabs at this time, as you're basically just subsidizing the mapping cost of other players by doing so. The only good reason I could see for doing this is if you were in a place where you don't have a large map pool yet and just really hate buying maps. But honestly, you'll end up having to go out and buy Cartography Scarabs anyway, so you'll just be trading one inconvenience for another. So if I were to try this strategy again, I might replace this with a Strongbox or Harbinger Scarab instead, or maybe even a Sacrificial Fragment for increased quantity. Next up, we've got Essence. These were actually surprisingly profitable, as we only spent 180 chaos between Sextants and Kirak, and we saw nearly 800 chaos in revenue, resulting in around 614 chaos profit, or nearly 13 C per map. I do need to warn you, however, Essence monsters are still really annoying, and I don't recommend them if you're not okay with dying occasionally. Finally, were Divination Scarabs worth running? Well, at the price I bought them for, of less than 1 chaos per Scarab, I'd definitely say so. If we attribute a third of the Brothers' stash and the Union cards to the Scarab, we made almost 10 times rate of return, pulling in around 280 chaos, or 5.8 chaos per map. But obviously, I would only run these on a map with good Divination cards. So to sum things up, Legion and Essence are both incredibly profitable, even if the price of supplies goes up considerably, and assuming your build can handle them both. Cartography Scarabs are basically a wash in terms of profit while running singular focus, and Divination Scarabs are worth running over time, so long as they remain cheap and you are running a map with a good Divination card. We ended up profiting 45.8x in 48 maps, averaging out to be just shy of 1 Exalt pure profit per map. While focused, these maps were taking me 7 or 8 minutes to complete, so a player with similar expenses and similar gear could probably expect to make around 7x an hour using this strategy. However, your personal profit will end up varying based on the price of supplies and the rate at which you can complete maps. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, good luck with your league, and I'll see you in the next one.